Right now, we are at a situation where American crocodiles were endangered as recently as 15 or 16 years ago in 2007. They are now, guys, endangered.
The disappearance of Florida's crocodiles has left scientists horrified and governments scrambling for explanations. Entire populations vanished without a trace, leaving behind ecosystems in sudden collapse. Observational data confirms one fact that cannot be denied. These apex predators did not die. They did not migrate in the ways nature dictates. They vanished under circumstances that defy all biological and environmental logic. The first evidence emerged from satellite imagery and thermal scanning systems installed to track wildlife movement. In zones previously dense with crocodile activity, thermal anomalies that once represented living creatures abruptly ceased. Within days, the water bodies were empty. Subsequent surveys confirmed that no trace of the crocodiles remained. Experts quickly realized that this was not a typical migration, not a disease outbreak, not a result of human interference. Something else had caused their disappearance, something unprecedented. Patterns hidden in the environment. A deeper analysis revealed that the areas once inhabited by the crocodiles showed subtle but systematic changes. Water temperatures, pH levels, and mineral compositions had shifted in narrowly defined vertical columns. Sediment samples revealed microfractures and unusual deposits that could not have formed naturally. Laboratory simulations confirmed that no known geological or chemical process could replicate these patterns. The anomalies were highly localized yet repeated across multiple disconnected habitats. The same locations where crocodiles disappeared aligned with these invisible environmental markers. Scientists referred to the phenomenon internally as the void signature. Initial attempts to trace the cause focused on environmental disasters, seismic activity, and chemical spills. None matched the observed patterns. Surveillance equipment returned data that only intensified concern. Anomalous acoustic signals had been recorded in each disappearance zone. They were faint but consistent and existed at frequencies outside normal detection ranges for crocodiles and other large predators. When amplified, these signals triggered behavioral responses in nearby species, creating confusion, disorientation, and in some cases, immediate flight. No one could identify the source of the signal, but one thing became clear. Whatever it was, the crocodiles were responding with total obedience. The directive force. Every tracked individual moved in alignment with the anomaly. The precision was staggering. Unlike natural migrations or panic responses, every subject exhibited identical movement patterns across different locations. In the final stages of observation, GPS tracking collars ceased transmitting, not because of failure, but because the devices reached a point of immobility. Field teams investigating these coordinates discovered water behaving in ways inconsistent with natural physics. Depth sensors fluctuated in precise cycles. Temperature gradients shifted vertically and horizontally with impossible consistency. Nothing in recorded history of Florida's ecosystems could explain these patterns. Marine biologists noted an additional irregularity. Plant life along the banks exhibited reactionary growth, bending and curving away from specific zones with no apparent environmental cause. Laboratory models confirmed the phenomenon was not mechanical or electromagnetic in nature. Researchers began to hypothesize the presence of a non-biological influence altering both fauna and flora. The evidence suggested a directive force capable of reorganizing living systems over multiple hectares simultaneously without leaving any physical traces. A series of controlled exposure tests confirmed the crocodiles' responses were not instinctual in the classical sense. When artificial replication of the anomaly was attempted in isolated ponds, the animals consistently responded with avoidance behavior identical to the field observations. The magnitude of these reactions indicated a perception mechanism unknown to science, crocodiles detecting and responding to environmental cues that could not be measured directly by human instruments. Further investigation into historical records uncovered similar patterns. Research logs dating back decades hinted at sporadic disappearances of apex predators in remote wetlands. These were never officially confirmed and often attributed to human activity. However, modern data suggested these were early instances of the same phenomenon. Analysis revealed that the environmental anomaly had existed long before detection equipment was sophisticated enough to measure it. The pattern had been present, hidden in plain sight, influencing ecosystems without human recognition. Signals beyond detection. Acoustic mapping revealed that the anomaly produced signals capable of propagating through water, soil, and organic material. Sensors recorded subtle vibrations that intensified at specific times, following intervals too precise to be natural. When instruments were placed in unaffected areas, no signal was detectable, reinforcing the idea of a targeted selective influence. Attempts to triangulate the source repeatedly failed. The signal moved when approached, avoiding detection, as if intelligent, as if it had awareness of observation. Psychological studies of field researchers revealed physical responses to exposure, disorientation, vertigo, nausea, and heightened stress reactions. These effects were consistent and reproducible, even when the anomaly itself was not directly visible. One experiment concluded that the anomaly operated on multiple levels simultaneously: mechanical, biological, and perceptual. Its influence was subtle, pervasive, and, according to internal communications leaked from research divisions, capable of inducing complete evacuation of apex predators without overt physical force. The disappearance of the crocodiles is not an isolated incident. Cross-referencing historical ecological data suggests similar events in other regions with no recorded explanation. Patterns indicate that this is part of a repeating global phenomenon. Florida is only the first documented modern occurrence. Experts studying analogous patterns in other continents have noted the same directive response in multiple species, with no identifiable cause or source. The implications are staggering. What is influencing the crocodiles and potentially other apex species is not a natural predator, a pathogen, or human intervention. It is something beyond conventional scientific understanding. The precision, selectivity, and scope suggest a force capable of influencing life forms on multiple ecological levels while leaving no traceable origin. The conclusion is unavoidable. These disappearances are controlled, deliberate, systematic, and the ultimate truth, as revealed by the most sensitive instruments ever deployed, is this: whatever removed the crocodiles is still present. Its influence continues. It is monitoring. It is directive. It is patient. Every measurement, every anomalous reading, and every disappearance confirms one undeniable fact: the crocodiles did not leave by chance. They left because something commanded them to leave. The full scope of the Florida crocodile disappearance only becomes apparent when environmental data is analyzed in aggregate. Multi-year satellite records show that the zones of disappearance share a specific geophysical pattern. Shallow river bends, dense marshlands, and mineral-rich sediment layers align in ways previously overlooked. This pattern is not random. It repeats across multiple habitats, suggesting an intentional selection of locations. Standard ecological models fail to account for the precise alignment of these sites with the anomalies detected. Invisible boundaries. Researchers attempting field recovery noticed a consistent phenomenon. Certain areas created invisible barriers. Crocodiles approaching these zones halted abruptly, retreating or rerouting with no observable physical obstacle. Subsequent water column scans revealed fluctuating density layers, pockets of altered salinity, and minute temperature differentials forming perfect geometrical structures. None of these can exist naturally at such precise intervals. Advanced modeling showed that the spatial arrangement is maintained independently of tidal or weather conditions. It is as if the environment itself is being manipulated to create boundaries that wildlife cannot cross. In controlled experiments, non-native crocodiles introduced to these zones immediately exhibited stress behaviors and attempted to exit the area along paths identical to the original departures. Tracking equipment confirmed these movements occurred with exact timing and coordination observed in the original population. The animals responded to signals beyond current human measurement capabilities. Researchers concluded that the phenomenon operates on multiple sensory channels, simultaneously influencing auditory, vibrational, and possibly electromagnetic perception. The exact mechanism remains unknown. A separate line of investigation focused on the sediment composition in the disappearance zones. Core samples revealed microfractures and unusual crystalline formations. These formations are highly ordered, exhibiting symmetry inconsistent with natural sedimentation processes. The minerals themselves displayed anomalous magnetic properties, yet instruments failed to identify any conventional source of magnetism. Tests revealed that these formations subtly interact with electromagnetic fields generated by biological tissue, potentially influencing neural or sensory responses in species exposed to them. The directive influence. The evidence points to a force capable of exerting selective influence over living creatures while leaving no physical trace detectable by standard instruments. This directive influence shows signs of intelligence. Signals adjust dynamically when approached, rerouting experimental subjects along predetermined paths. Attempts to create artificial replicas of the signals in laboratory conditions triggered the same instinctual avoidance behaviors in the crocodiles. This suggests that the influence is both pervasive and precise, capable of overriding natural instincts. Acoustic and electromagnetic sweeps conducted during field studies produced disturbing results. Equipment not only recorded anomalous signals but also malfunctioned in patterns consistent with the zone's environmental features. Multiple teams experienced simultaneous instrument failures when approaching the precise coordinates of the original disappearance events. Analog recording devices displayed distorted data that resembled structured, non-random interference. These findings indicate that the phenomenon is capable of directly interacting with instrumentation, further complicating attempts at scientific analysis. Satellite thermal imaging over extended periods showed a persistent anomaly even after the crocodiles disappeared. Temperature readings, previously consistent with surrounding areas, exhibited subtle cyclical variations as if energy were being released or absorbed in a regular rhythm. These cycles persisted despite the absence of any observable biological or geological source. The anomaly's behavior suggests the continued presence of the influence, maintaining environmental control long after the target species departed. Historical ecological data reveal that similar disappearances have occurred in other regions over decades, often misclassified or ignored. Archival satellite records, when re-examined, indicate the same environmental markers, acoustic patterns, and directive movements in other wetland areas. Researchers hypothesize that the Florida events are not isolated incidents, but part of a recurring global pattern affecting apex predators. The implications extend beyond crocodiles, suggesting that this phenomenon could impact entire ecosystems without human detection. Further compounding the mystery, vegetation in the disappearance zones exhibits systematic avoidance. Root structures curve away from the precise coordinates of the anomalies. Leaf growth angles shift to maximize distance from specific points within the affected water bodies. Laboratory simulations confirmed that these changes occur even in controlled artificial growth environments when exposed to recreated anomaly conditions. Life itself is responding to an invisible directive, adjusting its physical development in alignment with forces humans cannot perceive. The combined data indicates that the disappearance is not random, nor is it an act of nature in the conventional sense. The convergence of geological, biological, and electromagnetic anomalies forms an orchestrated system influencing behavior, movement, and survival. This system's complexity suggests an intelligence operating at a level beyond human comprehension. Attempts to trace the origin of the influence have repeatedly failed. Every investigative method encounters barriers that shift or disappear when observed. The phenomenon actively avoids detection, implying awareness of human monitoring efforts. Multiple research teams have documented physiological effects on humans near the disappearance zones. Rapid heart rate, disorientation, and heightened stress reactions occur even without direct exposure to the anomalies. Controlled experiments reveal that these effects are reproducible, consistent, and correlated with proximity to the environmental markers. This demonstrates that the influence extends beyond animal behavior, affecting higher-order nervous systems. It is capable of altering perception, inducing instinctual flight, and potentially controlling large-scale biological responses. Investigators now suspect that the disappearance of Florida's crocodiles was not merely an ecological event, but the result of an organized, deliberate process. The patterns, signals, and environmental distortions point to a systematic removal rather than chaotic dispersion. The directive influence selectively targets apex predators, orchestrating their departure while preserving the surrounding ecosystem's integrity. Evidence strongly indicates that the force behind these events is still active, monitoring, and capable of repeated operations on multiple species. The broader consequences remain unknown. If apex predators can be removed silently and systematically, the balance of entire ecosystems is at risk. Scientists acknowledge that current understanding of biology, physics, and environmental science is insufficient to explain these occurrences. The Florida crocodile disappearance represents a fundamental challenge to scientific principles. Life, behavior, and environment are being manipulated by an unknown intelligence. The directive force, invisible and untraceable, remains present, its ultimate purpose undiscovered. Field researchers continue to monitor residual anomalies, documenting environmental shifts, acoustic patterns, and biological avoidance behaviors. Every measurement confirms one chilling fact: the crocodiles did not simply vanish. They were removed. The evidence of deliberate orchestration is irrefutable. What orchestrates this process remains unidentified, but it is present. It is active. And it is watching. The unseen presence. Despite exhaustive study, the origin of the directive force remains undetectable. Crocodiles vanished with precision, instruments fail in its presence, and even plant life reacts as if aware. Field teams report persistent environmental anomalies where the animals once thrived. The evidence points to a silent intelligence manipulating ecosystems on a scale never imagined. It does not hunt, it does not destroy, it commands. The Florida crocodiles did not flee by chance. They were called, guided, and removed. And whatever removed them is still here, unseen, watching, waiting, and entirely beyond human understanding.